So today I want to talk about Path of Exile 2, which has been an amazingly fun game that we have experienced. It's in early access, it's paid early access, so the game is not fully out yet, but it will be here soon. But if you want to pay for it, you can get into it early. And there's so much good stuff to talk about the game. Like, I cannot sing its praises enough. It's oozing with atmosphere. Like, this whole area you can see here, like the candlelight, it just looks phenomenal. The enemies look great. The whole game just, oh, it feels like a gothic horror kind of game. It looks great. It feels great. I absolutely love like the first area. When you walk out to the first area, you can hear like this subtle singing, and I harp on it a lot how important it is from music to video games. So having that excellent music, that sound design is just phenomenal. The way the electricity looks, everything about that I love. But the game has some flaws, and that's what I want to talk about today is the flaws with the game. The biggest flaw I think with the game right now that everyone is talking about is that the loot feels like there's way too little loot. Like, you can full clear an entire map and only see one, maybe two items even worth looking at. That's not to say items don't drop, but there's a lot of just regular old meh rare items, which I get. There's got to be some filler loot. Not everything that drops can be useful, but the drops do feel a little sparse right now, and it feels a little bad to play for 1, 2, 3 hours and not make any progress at all because nothing will drop. In addition, your abilities like leveling up your skills aren't given to you just by leveling up, but rather by finding support gems and different level of gems. So your ability to level up your abilities, your character, is completely at the mercy of random drops. And so far, this character has had some pretty abysmal drops. I have had to use the shop to even upgrade items because I have found so few rare items. Which, I mean, that is good in the sense that, like, it's good to have the shop actually useful and not just there to waste everyone's time. But at the same time, like, I went multiple levels without ever seeing a single upgrade, and that felt awful. The second big complaint I have for the game, and again, this isn't just me, this is something I'm seeing on the forums, I'm seeing other people, is this game is unfairly hard for melee. Like, it's very clear they made this game with in mind for all the ranged classes. The mercenary is a ton of fun with his shotgun crossbow. The sorceress, of course, can bounce all across the map, set up traps, and fire off huge electrical things. That feels great, but it does not feel good for melee, and there's a few different contributing factors to that. Number one, the roll mechanic, the dodge mechanic you see here, ton of fun. Love the active dodge. It does not have any phasing with it. And what that means is that whenever you roll, you can't roll through enemies. Like these guys, I can sneak through a little crevice there, but if you get completely surrounded, you are completely stuck, which feels realistic. However, that means if you get surrounded, it's basically a death sentence because there's no way to get away from them, which means you're taking these enemies in a slower, more deliberate manner, which I do believe is the devs' purpose for the game. They wanted to be slower than Path of Exile. They didn't want to just be a clone of Path of Exile. They wanted to be a completely different game and a different experience, and I applaud that. However, melee is the only class that really suffers from that. Every other class has a lot of escape mechanics, dodge mechanics, other things that give them the ability to escape those circles, but melee has to get into those death circles because you have to get within melee range. The second problem you can see here, there are tons and tons and tons of things like these puddles and poisons and things on the floor that make it impossible to stand near or next to enemies without taking constant damage. Again, for ranged classes, that's not an issue because they can just stand back out of range of the puddle and deal the damage, but melee can't do that. They have to get into the enemies and deal that damage. For your regular everyday enemies, that's not a huge problem. However, once you start getting into boss fights, there are a lot of bosses that do like puddles, acid, things like that, and it creates this situation where one boss I can think of in particular, he had a regenerating shield, so you had to constantly hit him. If you didn't hit him, he would then start to regain his shield and undo damage. He didn't take more damage. However, he would constantly put puddles near him so you couldn't get close to him without taking damage. And of course, your healing in boss fights is limited. What this created was a really frustrating situation where I couldn't get close to the boss because, well, he was constantly dealing damage with puddles, but I had to get close to him to deal damage or else he would just heal back up, and that was super not fun to deal with. Not to mention there's a ton of bosses that deal all sorts of area effect damage that are huge, like screen-wide clearing, and you need to stand back in order not to take the damage. I can accept that, but every other class has some sort of ability to deal damage when you step back, but not the warrior, not the melee focused classes. I shouldn't say the warrior. One of the things I will give this game a huge pro for is that it gives you a ton of character customization. If you want to play a bow wielding warrior, you can. If you want to play a crossbow wielding Amazonian, you can. If you want your witch to be melee, you could do that if for some reason you wanted to. Like, the options are there, which is excellent. But why am I not healing here? Prevents recovery above 50%. Okay, well, this guy's also got some really bad abilities for me. Oh, come on, we can take him. There we go. And all that for some really, really meh loot at best, of course. So my point being that it's just really, really tough for melees with the way they've set up a lot of the bosses to really be an effective melee, because being surrounded is a death sentence. The puddles are everywhere and constant, and you just don't feel as strong as every other class because they have tools to deal damage from afar or get around all those mechanics, whereas the melee doesn't. And that's kind of the point of melee, right? You're supposed to be, I'm that unstoppable tank where I walk right into that damage and laugh it off, but you can't really laugh off that damage all that well. So there's some flaws there that are really frustrating. I do like that any class can be anything. I love that you have those options. And I love the ability to really customize your character to make your character how you want to make your character. But I will say that it is very overwhelming for a new player. I never really played Path of Exile 1, and I'm just now starting Path of Exile 2. And I feel completely lost on how to build my character, and I feel like every decision I make is a bad decision. Of course, I will get to a point where I can reset my character and I can reset those points so I can make a different build or try different things out. That is a core part of the game, and I understand that is a core part of the game on how you are supposed to experience the game, is customizing your character and playing how you want to play. I think that is awesome, but I also think that there are times that is overwhelming and that it is very easy that you could mess up your character and not deal any damage or have a bad build, and that feels broken and terrible. I've tried every class now, and I had a really hard time finding a class that really resonated with me. And again, this is just in the beginning, so you're playing kind of the build that they give you or start you out on, because each character starts in their own path. So I was just kind of playing with what they gave me there, and I could see where if you knew what you were doing and you were theory crafting and doing all that sort of thing, you could get really into the meat and bones, and I think make some really powerful characters that do some really cool things. But if you're terrible at theory crafting, like I am, you're kind of lost when you have all these options and you're not sure what the heck do I do. And that's going to lead me into my next point, which is that when things are really difficult like that, a lot of people go to the Reddit, the forums, the community to ask for help. And I gotta say, this community for Path of Exile 2 so far is absolutely atrocious. I have not met a more toxic community at launch in a while. I think the closest I could come to that is a League of Legends community for toxicity. Like, there are, of course, a ton of new people who've never played Path of Exile before who are in the chat asking for, hey, can you explain this mechanic to me? Or I don't understand how I prioritize these stats, or how do I do this thing? And they're just met with the standard trolls who are like, LOL, get good, or don't ask questions, just figure it out yourself, or just really generally unhelpful things. I spent the first couple days that I was playing getting harassed for being Christian, which is just awful bigotry in the game that should have never been allowed in the first place, and yet here we are. So if you're looking for a game with multiplayer aspects, do be aware that this community is very awful. I very much despise the Path of Exile community already. I have not seen a shining example yet. I have not seen any person who's spending their time answering questions or helping people. I've not seen people putting together things to really help new players get into the game, and that's a shame. I think that toxic communities can absolutely destroy games. We see it with, I use the example of League of Legends, where there are some people who absolutely will not touch a game like League of Legends because of the reputation it has for having such a toxic community. And while this game is getting popular, I think yesterday it had 500 or 600,000 concurrent players in early access. That's pretty darn impressive. But it also, there's a chance for us to lose all of that, as we've seen with things like Helldivers, where it had hundreds of thousands of people and lost them very quickly when the community turned against them. And I do fear that that is a potential we have here for the community to turn against the devs because they don't like the way things are going, but also because they're just so toxic that they just cannot handle the multiplayer aspects of the game. So that is another huge con for me. And I also want to note, I should have noted this at the beginning. I did say this game is early access. It is an early access game, of course. And that means a lot of these things that we're complaining about are going to be fine tuned. I do imagine at some point we will see the problems with loot fixed. You can see here, like, this is just a prime complaint on the loot. This belt, this is the first belt that ever dropped for me. I did not see a belt for 10 levels. I had to gamble to get a belt, and I just now am starting to see other belts drop, and they of course are not very good here, but that is ridiculous how long I had to wait to find just a basic, like, not even a magic. I'm not talking a magic item at all here. I'm talking about just straight up, that is how long it took me to find one belt to equip in my equipment slot here. Like, that should not have taken that long. Let me go back to the boss fights here. I talked a little bit about how boss fights are unfair to melee, and while I still think that is true, the boss fights are extremely memorable. This boss fight that I'm going to be going into here, when I finally find it, scrolling through the manor here, is one of the ones that I've seen people talk about the absolute most. A lot of people are referencing Bloodborne, and probably for good reason. I don't want to give spoilers, but obviously I will be fighting the boss here soon, if I can find him. So, spoilers if you stick around to see that. But the bosses feel unique. They feel like it's not just, learn their pattern and you're going to beat them, even though, like, they are. But they have great music. They have great movesets. They feel very, very excellent in all of those aspects of them. I forgot to grab healing while I was in town, so that was bad. That was my bad. The bosses just feel put together. They feel like these epic boss fights, and when you finally beat through one, you finally get done struggling against one, you feel really accomplished when you do beat them. I would say that I've never had an unfair death in this game. Now, I know that's not everyone's experience, especially with the early access disconnects. A lot of people are flying the servers. A lot of people were lagging out. Again, those are early access flaws that will smooth out as they fix servers, as they get better. I don't really consider that to be a problem. I know that that will change in time. But every death that I've had has felt fair in the fact of, okay, I understand what I did wrong. I understand why that happened, and I understand how to prevent that. The only time I would say that there's like, well, I don't know how to prevent that, is when I'm facing like an area with 4 or 5 swarms of enemy coming at me like that, and then I get locked in the dodge, like I've talked about, where you can't out dodge them. And it's like, okay, but what can I do about that? I have to get in melee range to deal damage. What else can I do? And again, that might just be me, a skill issue. Maybe if I put some ranged abilities on my character, I could access that. I don't want to. I want a pure melee. That is how I enjoy playing games, is playing a melee. So there should be a way to play a pure melee. I just haven't gotten there yet. And like there, we were talking about those puddles. I had to cross those puddles to get to these guys to deal damage. But those puddles took out my entire health. I had to use a potion just to get through that darn puddle. Like, those deal so much damage, and it feels so bad for people who are who are melee. Like, it's so difficult to get through some of those areas. So that really sucks. I do think they'll tune it. I do think it will be better. I do think we'll get there. We're just not quite there yet. Another thing, this is a personal gripe, and this is something I'll be making a video on completely later that I wanted to talk about. Why is there no Templar? Why is there no Crusader? Why is there no Holy Warrior? Like, the game is about fighting demons and evil. Why is there no Paladin? Like, it doesn't make sense to me that we don't have that. I know Path of Exile has one. Diablo 4 did the same thing, where the game is literally killing the prime evils of the world, and yet you didn't think to add a Holy Warrior? It feels like a really strange oversight to me. And that's my preferred class fantasy, so that might be why I'm a little disconnected from the game, is I don't have my class fantasy, because for whatever reason they felt that a Holy Warrior would not exist in this world, or would not fit in this world, or needed to be a first expansion thing rather than a base launch thing. I don't know, but I really wish we had a Holy Warrior. My last thing to talk about here is the difficulty of the game. If you've been watching the side chat, you've probably seen people complaining about it also. And that's why I'm saying it's not just a me thing. There's a lot of people saying that, what is going on here? Why is this game so difficult? There is definitely some difficulty to this game. It is not like Diablo 3, Diablo 4, where you just run around the world casting AoE spells, everything blows up, and you're showered in legendary loot and things like that. It feels a lot slower paced. It feels a lot more deliberate, and it feels good. It definitely feels like a challenge. As I said, that I felt that there's a lot of fair deaths. I feel like there is a challenge. I feel like there's a lot to learn with the game, but it is a more difficult game. So if you're a person who gets frustrated easily, or you don't want to have to redo the same boss fights over and over while you're learning things, this game might not be for you. I finally found this boss, so I'll show you how cool this boss is. And again, you'll see those things I was talking about. He's got a lot of those complaints I have on bosses for melee, where it's like, okay, so he's got a move that completely covers the entire area. How the heck am I supposed to deal damage to him if I can't get close to him, because he's just going to deal damage to me in an area? But this is one of the coolest fights that people talk about, so I'm going to play against him while we're talking about the difficulty. It definitely feels like a Souls-like boss, in the sense of, like, there's a lot of learning the patterns in order to beat these guys. It may look like I'm dealing a lot of damage to him. Don't worry, he's got multiple phases, so he does that whole, like, oh, you're beating me? Ah, you thought. Oh, I got hit by that ability. I did not react fast enough. I do love that he puts you in a corner and just beats on you if you get hit by that. Again, it feels thematic. It feels good. Oh, and there's one of those abilities that went too fast. Like, I had to be close to him to deal damage to him, but I couldn't get out of it in time. I don't remember which ability this is. He's got a lot of abilities, so it's really hard to keep track of all the abilities he's going to use on you. Eventually, he's going to lock me into a circle here. And that's gonna be super frustrating. Okay, is he transforming now? Did you finally get to the next phase? This is the longest it ever takes me to get through the first phase, which is weird because I've been spending time getting loot and leveling up, so you think it would be easier, but I'm getting kind of my butt kicked here on this first phase. Maybe it's because I'm trying to talk and play at the same time. There we go. Okay, first phase done. Now we get this epic transformation. Looks great. Okay, here's the first AoE ability where I can't stop to attack him because I will get hit by those abilities if I do. Okay, here's an AoE ability where I have to run away, but I can't really deal damage to him while I'm running away. And then now here's where he's going to lock me into a circle and do summon minions and deal damage. But there's not a whole lot I can do just surrounded by minions here as he runs through and deals damage to you. Like, I feel locked in this small circle without a lot of ability to deal with it. I would love to know how to deal with it. And maybe I'm wrong. Again, maybe I just don't know a secret that other people know, but I can't ask the community because they're pretty toxic. So I don't know. It would be great to know, but unfortunately I can't know. Okay, here comes that AoE ability. Let's back off. Okay, dodging poorly. And I just feel like if I was like a sorceress or a witch or someone with a little bit more ranged abilities, I would definitely be able to deal a lot more damage while I'm dodging around, but I just don't have that ability. I have to be close to him, and that means, unfortunately, I'm taking some damage. And again, your armor is supposed to do something about that, but he just does so many moves so fast that it's really hard to get it hidden edgewise on him. And this isn't even his final form. It's gonna get worse. He's gonna deal even more damage even faster here in a second. Like, what are you supposed to do to deal damage to this guy as he goes berserk on you and I can't get close to him, even though my only damage dealing abilities are close? Alright, he's gonna lock me in a circle again. Gonna raise my shield, deal a little bit of damage as he's swooping through. Don't get surrounded. Alright, we should be getting through. Okay, he's coming back out. Okay, he's getting a little bit faster. Hey, I actually dodged that one. Okay, we're actually getting some damage in. Alright, he's knocked. We can get a little bit of damage in here. Now here comes his final phase. Hopefully it's his final. This is the farthest I've ever made it, so hopefully he doesn't have a phase after this because, man, he does a lot of damage and he's fast here, and I can't get a word in edgewise against him sometimes. Okay, let's summon that. Oh no, he's going to do a whole nother one of these with even worse because now we've got his raining down fire bolts against us. Okay, we're gonna deal some damage. Oh, there's so many. Come on, we can do this. Okay, oh, we got AoE. I was in the wrong place. I rolled to the wrong place. I got hit by the freezing breath. Keep rolling. Heal up. Oh, we're bad. We're in bad shape. Okay, let's back off. Get a small hit in there. Okay. Should be safe here. I don't know what's going on. Again? Well, I hate this little circle arena thing, like... He's so close to dead. He's so close to dead. Why won't he just die? Oh, we did it. Holy cow, that was a hard fight. Alright, give me some good loot. Show me some good loot for doing that huge, horrible fight. Man, I know that there are some players out there who are like, oh, this is how you do this fight in 2 minutes. Here's how you min-max. Again, I haven't gotten that from the community. So I haven't had a way to do that, but man, was that a cool fight. And that's why I talk about, like, it's very cinematic. I'm going to remember that fight for a long, long time. Simply just because of how cool and cinematic it was. All right, stop talking and drop loot. You're dead. You're dead. Give me the loot. All right. All right. That wasn't terrible loot, I don't feel like. Let's identify some things and see if there was anything of value in there. That's definitely the next problem, is getting some things of value here. Let's identify some items. Did we get anything worth anything? 21 to 28 damage with 1 to 13. A level 12 mace against my 44 to 59. Maybe. I mean, it's got some great accuracy, some critical hit chance. That's a maybe. That's gonna be my final problem. Diablo had this problem. This is the last thing that I'm gonna say. There's no way, like, I look at this and, like, okay, it does less damage, but I've got all these other stats. How do I know what stat is better for me, and how do I know which stat is worse for me? There seems to be no great way to tell what stats are actually important to you without going to an outside guide. And I definitely think that is a flaw of a game. If the only way to know how to build a character or how to know if something is an upgrade or not for you is to go outside of the game, that is obviously an issue. If you have to go to outside sources in order to figure out, okay, what is better for me? What stats do I prioritize? Those sort of things. Again, maybe if you're really good at theory crafting, you might be able to get away with that, but I certainly cannot. I am not smart enough to figure it out. So it'd be nice to know, like Diablo does, like the little arrows that'll tell me, okay, this will make this better, this will make this worse, and I can easily figure out what is actually better than what I am dealing with. I can compare items here, but again, that doesn't help me very much to know, okay, so this does way less damage from physical damage, but it has lightning damage, same critical hit chance, it's a little bit slower attack, but then these numbers don't really do a whole lot for me. It would be easier for, like, the arrow system that Diablo has. I guess here it says 58% increased physical damage, but that doesn't make sense. The other weapon does way more physical damage. So is that because of the accuracy? Does accuracy increase your damage? It's used to hit targets, but I don't know. I don't know, and that's the problem, is that there's so much information and I don't know how to decipher. And that is something you learn with the game. And again, I'm not saying I'm some expert at the game, but it is a flaw that you don't know these things just looking at it. Maybe it's from the strength increase here. Does that strength increase give me that extra physical damage? It's super, super hard to tell. So that is my final complaint for the game. Overall, I still feel like the game is in a great state. And I feel like we're going to get an even better game once it actually launches and they hammer out a few of these details. Right now, as you know, when I rate games, I feel like games are way too overrated. So my scores are typically lower than people like to see, and that makes them upset. I still think, flaws and all, this game sits somewhere around like a 7. And once some of those flaws are fixed, we're going to be seeing one of the greats of the genre. And I definitely think they're going to take that next 6 months to really cook and make this game something special. So if you can deal with some of the flaws that I said now, it is definitely worth getting into and playing. If you can't, well, wait a few months and it'll be free for you to try, and then you can decide for yourself. There's my review of the game. Have a blessed day.